My name is Charlotte Meigs, and I have depression and anxiety. I didn't really think I was going to say that to the entire school. That's not the most important part of who I am, nor is it how I want to be defined, but it has affected the person that I am today, and it's not something that we tend to talk about freely. To be honest, being up here is just about the most terrifying thing in the world to me. But when I was a freshman, one of my dorm leaders shared in her CES that she had struggled with depression, and I wanted so badly to go to her and tell her that I was dealing with the same thing, because it helped just to know that I wasn't alone. I didn't, though, because she didn't mention wanting to talk more about it, and I was afraid that I might bother her. When I was debating whether or not to talk about mental health in my chapel talk, I told one of my friends that story, and she said that I should do it for my freshman year self, and for anyone else who might be feeling the same way I was. So here I am. I thought, initially, that I would stand up at the podium and explain that I'd dealt with this stuff, but that it was behind me now, that I'd overcome it and was standing here as an example that you can too. And I believe that it is possible to overcome, that you will beat it, and so will I, but I can't say that I already have. One of the most typical triggers of depression and other mental health issues is a sudden life change, especially when it's accompanied by a shift in your support system. When I moved into high school, I left not only my middle school behind, but also my whole family and all of the friends I had ever known. I was optimistic, hoping and believing that I would find a group of friends, a group of best friends, in no time. I pushed down my nerves and worry and plunged into an environment entirely unlike anything I had been in before. 2 weeks in, I felt completely lost. It seemed as if everyone I knew had already met their best friends, and everywhere I turned, people had their lives together, knew how to navigate the weird social sphere that is boarding school, and had already found their place. That fall is mostly a blur to me now, with scattered fond memories, but mostly an empty feeling haze of numbness and worry. I was lucky, though. My mother, who has dealt with mental health issues herself, recognized the signs in me, and over December break, I was diagnosed with depression. Knowing a name for what I was feeling didn't make everything better, though. Winter is always harder for me, with the lack of sun and less time outside. And the problem with depression is that almost everything that helps feels like the exact opposite of what you want to do. You're supposed to spend more time exercising, being outside, socializing, but when you struggle to feel that getting out of bed in the morning is worth it, those are the last things you want to do. I've heard that depression is like drowning, and that might be a little dramatic, but water is a good analogy. When you're in it, it feels like it's too deep to catch your footing, and there's nothing to grab hold of to keep your head up. And the water distorts your vision, makes you see everything in a twisted sort of light that convinces you to pay attention to it and it alone. And when you're under the wave, it feels as if this is what life will always be like, as if all the time spent outside of the water were actually cloudy and not full of sun like they felt at the time. It tricks you into thinking that depression is the truth, that what you are struggling with is actually just a realization of what the world is truly like, and that now you have experienced it, you can never go back to how it was before. That winter, I was convinced that depression was the truth. I felt that I had seen how things really were, from my own social problems to larger global issues that felt so huge I couldn't do anything about them. I struggled with self-harm, and I'm not proud of it, nor am I proud of how seriously I considered suicide, but I'm trying to be thankful that that's behind me, rather than ashamed that it ever happened. Luckily, there are a million ways to fight depression, from therapy to medicine to an absurdly bright light to sit in front of in the winter. Everyone offers different strategies. For me, talking to people about it helped, though it sometimes felt like something too personal to share. That's one of the main reasons I really wanted to do this talk, because when I began telling people in my life about how I was struggling, I was terrified that they might not take me seriously, or might feel like I was just dumping my problems onto them. But I found that more people than I ever expected can relate to this issue, and that people genuinely mean it when they offer their support. If you're not comfortable telling people about it, that's okay, but know that I'm here, and that so are dozens of others at Millbrook alone, and you can always come to me or them if you need someone to listen. I feel more comfortable talking about depression because I currently feel like I have a fairly good hold on it. I know the patterns in my brain, and I've found ways to escape them when I feel them starting to worsen. And that's really comforting, because maybe if I can control my depression, I'll be able to overcome the anxiety that I still struggle with. Anxiety has been more difficult for me to cope with, possibly because I've always been a somewhat anxious person. Social anxiety has popped up throughout my life, making new scenarios terrifying and forcing me to question my friendships, doubting whether people I love care about me or whether I'm just being annoying. It's a strange feeling, really. Everything and nothing all at once, with a brain that won't shut up, but won't even tell me what exactly is wrong. It's freshman year, lying in bed, shaking from worry about finding a spot at lunch. But it's also senior year, standing just inside my door, convincing myself to cross the 3 feet of hallway to go hang out with friends. And in both, my ridiculous, ridiculous brain telling me that I am not wanted there. And that feeling is so incredibly destructive, because we grow up being told that our value lies in being wanted, that we are only as important as the world thinks we are, and that if we aren't wanted, then we are not enough. So listening to that voice in my brain does more than just isolating me from my friends. It convinces me that I am not wanted, and because of that, I am not enough, that I'll always be lingering on the outsides. And it forms a horrible self-fulfilling circle, because the more I listen to it and believe that I'm not wanted, the more I withdraw, the more I stop participating in conversations, stop going places to hang out, stop reaching out to people to see if they want to spend time together. And that only confirms things for my brain, because then the anxious voice turns things around to convince me that this isolation is really what the people around me prefer, that they ultimately do not want me and that I'm not enough. But I'm working on listening to the rational side of my brain, the part that reminds me that that voice is not the truth. I'm learning to take a step back, look at things from outside of those frantic thoughts, and notice that no one even remembers the slightly awkward things I said today. Because really, if a friend of mine did something a little bit weird or said something sort of awkwardly, there's no way I would think less of them for it. I wouldn't even remember it. And I'm not going to lie, it doesn't always work perfectly. I can't always pull myself out of that downward spiral. I can't always make myself accept that it's all right. But I know that this will pass, because everything has so far, and everything suggests that it will continue to. And the truth is that you are wanted, that you are enough. And nothing anyone says or does, including what your own brain tells you, can change that. And that's hard to keep in mind, but it's all the more reason to check in on each other. Make sure your friends know that you care about them and that you really do want to spend time together. It may seem obvious or ridiculous, but it means a lot to know that people are there for you, regardless of whether or not you have social anxiety. So know that you're not alone, that others are there for you, that you don't have to feel like there's nothing to grab hold of when everything is overwhelming. And most of all, know that this will pass. Nothing lasts forever, and those things the worrying side of your brain tells you are not the truth. And I'm here, and so are your friends, and your PCs, and your dorm leaders, and even your teachers. And you can do this. Thank you.